So when you're sitting in silence, and when I'm sitting in silence, it's just a bunch of stuff starts to surface that you hadn't been addressing previously. So a bunch of different cravings, desires, things that you haven't addressed, like maybe this really important family matter or argument, in my case, just they keep replaying in your mind. And so you have this backlog of unprocessed emotions and events that just keep surfacing over and over and over again. And you have to basically just pay attention to them and then let go of them. And for me, the first day was really difficult. There was a lot of craving and just this discomfort. Just, I viscerally felt it through my body. I sat without doing anything for about 4 hours. I meditated for one of those hours. And I just sat there and these emotions were just like overwhelming. I couldn't detach from them. I couldn't really let go of them. I barely had the urge to meditate. I didn't really want to meditate. And it was very painful the first day. The second day, it got a bit easier. And I noticed myself more comfortable with just sitting in silence, being with my thoughts. And I was trying to not give in to fantasies, because what I realized is, and what I learned from watching a bunch of videos, was that we're addicted to the fantasies that our mind creates. So from a young age, we've been using our minds to soothe ourselves when we feel emotions or feelings. And this was such an insightful, important moment for me in this process, where I realized thoughts are justifications for feelings. Feelings actually don't have to have justifications. Your mind is rationalizing your feelings and turning it into a narrative that makes you, I don't know, it just distracts you in a sense from the intensity of the feeling itself. So maybe you have this emotion of anxiety, and your mind will create a narrative around that anxiety, or this is why it's happening, this is what it says about the world, to avoid you, to distract you from feeling that emotion by itself. And we've been doing this from a young age. We're taught to do this. And I took a moment and like a step back from this whole process. I was like, oh no, that's like previously I thought that's completely normal. Like you're just entertaining yourself. You're not basically getting bored. That's you having a relationship with yourself. These stories, these narratives, these even fantasies you create when you're alone. And this was the weird part, when on the spiritual path, you get like, you realize more and more things are kind of coping mechanisms. And I realized that my thinking and these stories that I'm creating and my thoughts as the final refuge were actually just another cope. I was coping using my thoughts, using my these narratives, this addiction to these stories. And it was pretty funny to realize this, because it's like, what else is there? And I remember speaking to one of my friends and she was like, what if cope is all that you are? And that really hit home for me. I realized that it was just like a series of things that I used to cope that I'm just unraveling from. And as I'm in the silence, those things just unravel more and more. And I think it was day 3 when I realized, okay, I'm addicted to these stories that I'm telling myself. And knowing this isn't that helpful, I'll be honest, because you understand this, but it's something you've been doing your entire life. You're creating like this story, or you're speaking to yourself, or even creating arguments or fantasies in your head, and then you're taking them very seriously. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like taking that story in your mind really seriously, and you're like, oh, this is the reality, this is the world. And you don't have this distance between your thoughts. And like I said, like, knowing this stuff isn't that helpful, but I guess it's a stepping stone on unraveling just this fundamental addiction to thought that we all have, that goes unquestioned our whole lives. And if you go to like someone on the street, or someone who's not very spiritually inclined, and you say like your thoughts are an addiction, they'll think you're crazy. And it does sound crazy. It's like, okay, if my thoughts are an addiction, then what? Like, what are you talking about? What else is beyond thought? You have to kind of have some semblance of understanding of what is beyond thought. And so I, taking this information in, I've been kind of trying to let go more and more of these narratives and see them as narratives. And another idea that came into mind on a video that I watched from Adi Ashanti a while back was just treating your thoughts with irrelevance, or kind of this like with an equanimity almost. Like all of your thoughts are equally valid, and all of them aren't that valid, or they're not valid at all. The way I think about it, or the metaphor that I use in my mind, is they're as valid as the sound of the rain. When you hear the sound of the rain, it appears in your conscious experience. The stories and every single thought that you have is just as valid as that sound of that raindrop that's just falling outside. And so this is a recent realization I had, like I re-remembered the equanimity. I feel like there's so many things I just forget, and then I re-remember them later on, and they just have way more impact. So I re-remembered how every thought is equal and insignificant or empty in its nature. And so now in my journey of just being silent, I'm playing around more with just this equality like viewpoint where everything is equal. So I'm going to sit in silence more, and I'll report back, make another video on how it's going. And I understand that also, like, sitting in silence for like 3-4 hours probably sounds insane to a lot of people, and it's probably not, like, I don't think everyone has a lifestyle that is conducive to being able to even do that in the first place. Fortunately for me, like, I don't really get disturbed by anyone. I can just sit in silence for 3-4 hours, and it's pretty chill. But yeah, I'm gonna carry on sitting in silence, venture forward into the unknown, into the abyss more and more. And yeah, we'll see what surfaces. I'm sure there's still a lot more conditionings to unravel, a lot more stories to let go of. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.